President Xi of China is on a state visit to Russia, where he's been warmly greeted by President Putin. The summit has been the focus of a good deal of speculation following the publication of China's plan to settle the acute crisis in Ukraine. Mr. Putin said that Moscow was always open to negotiation, but the Americans have already warned that the Chinese peace plan could be just a delaying tactic. The visit comes just days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for President Putin in relation to alleged war crimes. From Moscow, our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg reports.
Just 3 days ago, Vladimir Putin was named as a war crime suspect by the International Criminal Court. But that didn't stop China's president flying in and shaking his hand. Putin and Xi have met many times before, but never before has Russia's president been under such pressure. His war in Ukraine not going at all according to plan. Xi Jinping called Vladimir Putin his dear friend, his strategic partner. The Kremlin leader said they would discuss China's peace initiative. But there is no detailed Chinese plan to end the war in Ukraine. What Moscow would like from Beijing is lethal aid to help it win. Beijing's been reluctant to provide that to prevent secondary sanctions against Chinese companies. But it has been supplying dual-use technology, like semiconductor chips, that the Russian military can use. The Kremlin also wants to expand trade with China. With Russia under heavy international sanctions, economic ties with Beijing are proving a lifeline. If you burn bridges with the West, as Vladimir Putin has, what do you do then? You look east. That's exactly what the Kremlin leader has done. Recent events have accelerated Russia's dependency on China. Putin and Xi may speak about mutually beneficial cooperation, but Beijing looks increasingly like the senior partner. But Moscow hasn't just partnered with Beijing. Last week, Russia held joint naval exercises with China and Iran. There are signs the Kremlin is looking to forge an anti-Western alliance.
Putin is building his own bloc. He doesn't trust the West anymore. He's looking for allies and trying to make Russia part of a common fortress with China, as well as with India, Latin America and Africa. Putin is building his own anti-Western world.
Now, with Xi Jinping here, Russia can claim that it's not isolated, that Moscow has powerful allies who view the world through a similar lens, that it doesn't need the West if it has friends in the East. But experience shows China always puts China first. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
Well, we can now speak to Mark Montgomery. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. Mark, thank you for taking the time to come on the programme. Now, the two leaders are expected to meet later on today, on Tuesday. President Putin has said that they will discuss China's peace plan. What's your assessment on what might come out of that?
Well, first, thank you for having me. And I think the overall goal of these meetings is to further develop and enhance their no limits partnership. And I think I try to look at that through three prisms. The first, diplomatic. I mean, China has fully supported Russia at the United Nations. They condemn the war as a NATO-inspired conflict. They've supported them economically. I mean, they've bought all the natural resource, the oil and natural gas that Europe has chosen not to buy. They've bought from Russia. They've increased trade 30%. The one area where Putin needs more support is in the military area, where Chinese support, well, it hasn't been transparent. It's also clear it has not been substantial. So I think Vladimir Putin will be working hard to improve that military support as part of the No Limits partnership.
Now, in terms of the power dynamics of China and Russia, it could be assumed that China now holds all of the cards.
Well, I think you're spot on, and your correspondent, Steve Rosenberg, was right. I mean, this is their 40th meeting, and I think over those 40 meetings, over the last 11 years, the power dynamic has shifted from Russia being the more predominant power it was a fully nuclear armed country in 2012 when they started meeting, to where they sit today, where clearly Russia is dependent on China for support, both in this conflict and more broadly internationally from China. So a complete flipping of the relationship over the past decade.
Now, China has said that it's neutral in terms of the war in Ukraine. And so what's your view on where the stance is and where they actually stand?
Well, I don't think it's possible to see China as a neutral player in this. And I really worry about a world order defined by Russia and China, and it won't have respect for sovereignty. It won't have transparency, respect for rule of law. I think even President Zelensky, as magical as his personality has been with most international leaders, he'll find he doesn't get far with President Xi. So a Chinese-led effort here, I think, would only redound to Russia's advantage.
Now, very briefly, the White House is now urging President Xi Jinping to tell President Putin to respect Ukraine's sovereignty. Do you think that will fall potentially on deaf ears?
Well, I mean, Xi is meeting Putin after Putin has just gone to Crimea, just gone to Mariupol, has just been indicted by the National Criminal Court. I don't think President Xi is going to listen to the United States' guidance or direction on how to develop his partnership with President Putin.
Mark Montgomery, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, thank you very much.
Thank you.